All right, so now what we want to do is we want to actually save this question into our database. But we actually also want to think about how we want to save this question. Okay, so when I'm doing a match, right, I want to do a couple things. First of all, I want to know this data about you. So, hello, your name is, what is your name? And then I also want to know about who your ideal person is, right? So if I was answering this myself, I want to know my preference, and then I want to know my ideal person's preference. So in this case, I want to know my preference for a job, and I want to know what my boss's preference would be. And then I want to measure how important that is to either side of that equation, right? So let's actually put it down, and then I'll actually show you, and we'll go through and talk about what that means exactly. So first of all, I want to go in to our home.html where we have this question. And I'm going to copy it and turn it into being single.html because home for questions is going to be different than the single.html. So that's the first thing I want to do. So inside of questions, I'm going to make a new template here called single.html. And we're just going to copy the entire thing from questions home. So copy that whole thing and close it out. You can close out a lot of things actually. So we paste in single now. So this is that next step. All right, so from here, what I'm going to do is say, I'll just do H3 here, and sort your ideal answer, or your answer. And then I'm going to copy this entire thing and paste underneath it, and say their ideal answer. So their ideal answer. So like your boss's ideal answer, or who your coworker's ideal answer. So how about that? Your coworker's ideal answer, because he's going to apply to your boss as well as their coworkers, their current coworkers. So it's going to apply to that entire team versus just one individual person. All right, so now we've got that, and then I'll just say coworker answer ID. So it separates it just a little bit because the name is associated to the radios themselves. So if we go and look at these questions, let's make sure the server's running. And this is something we didn't really talk about, but the radio itself, whatever name you apply to these inputs, will be the name that's passed when you go and get this form cleaned data stuff. So since we added this new one of coworker answer ID, we should add this into our form as well. So in forms, we're going to add this same exact thing here, and we'll say coworker answer ID. So that's actually what's right here. So this name is associated to this field. There's another thing that we can take a look at, and I'll show you in just a second how you can see this data outside of the context of the Django forms. But that's not exactly what we want to see. But okay, so let's go back in here. And we see that this question, we've got the question, and then we'll say your answer, and then your coworker's ideal answer. So this is my answer. My name is Justin. Yes, it is. And then your coworker's ideal answer is, doesn't matter. Really? It doesn't, right? It doesn't matter what their name is. It also doesn't really matter what my name is. So this question is not a very good question to really get an idea of somebody. So we need to qualify that somehow. So we need to say, hey, this is not a very good question for me or for them. Like, it might be a great question for me, like such as, do you consider yourself a hard worker? That might be a great question for me. But like, if I'm the boss, I mean, I kind of care what my coworkers might say, but I don't know. I mean, that's something that's up to other people, because maybe if you're a hard worker, it makes other people naturally hard workers too. I don't know. That's a hard one to answer specifically because we all have different preferences there. But in this case, we don't have a different preference. This question really doesn't matter. Like, it doesn't matter what your name is, your first name, or any name for that matter. So we need to qualify that somehow, especially for our matching algorithm. So what that means is in our forms, I'm going to add this whole nother level of saying how important this idea is to any particular person. So I really quickly made this tuple of the data that we would have. So each level, different levels of how important this question would be to somebody. So if it's a mandatory, very important, and so on. And this is what they would end up choosing. So to have this choice field itself, we're going to add importance level, and we're going to do forms.choice field, and the choices equal to levels. And we also want to do that exact same thing for coworker importance level. So coworker importance level. So in our single.html, we can now render this. So form.importance level. And then, of course, coworker importance level. Okay, so we go back into our question and we render it again, and this is what we've got. So we probably want to put a break here. We'll worry about styling this stuff in a little bit, or in a little while, styling it better. But or how important is this question to you? Importance is what I'll go off of. So that's kind of what we're saying here. All right, so we go back in here and we see now we've got this importance level, and I'll go ahead and make sure that the button is a little bit lower. Okay, so now we've got hello there. Is your name Justin? And for me, the importance level is not important, right? So yes, it is. It's not important. For them, it's not important at all. So it doesn't really matter what I say. So I can just select something and just say not important. Or I can give this optional value at some point. Maybe I'll say doesn't matter, like a different, we'll have our different answers, but then we'll also have a level on there saying it doesn't matter or does not apply. So that's something we can add too. But now that we've got this, let's go ahead and take a look at our view function for the data that's going to come through. So now if the form is valid, I'm going to print form.cleaned data. I'm also going to print one more thing, which is request.post. So this right here is what it's actually getting, and I'll kind of explain what's going on here in just a second. So let's go back into our question and say, hello, is your name Justin? Yes, it is. It's not important. Coworker's ideal answer, also not important. Save and continue. And let's take a look at our printed statements. And it looks like we didn't get anything here. So this is a good time to put the form errors on here by simply doing form.errors. Go back in, and we will go ahead and fill this stuff out. Hit save and continue. It says coworker ID answer ID is required. So let's look in our forms, and we have a little spelling error there. So let's try that again. This time it actually goes through, and here we go. So first of all, I'm going to get rid of the clean data so we can see what happens here. And I'll just say yes, very important, yes, mandatory. Okay, I went ahead and submitted it, and now I see this right here. So this is the post data that's actually coming through. So what happens is when you're posting information to a server, it doesn't matter if it's Django or not, you get data coming into that server. So the data that's coming through, the server can see and read and kind of understand. So in this case, it is doing that. It's seeing and reading all this different data, but it's not validating that data. So it's not actually cleaning it out and making sure that it's good, solid data that we can use. That's what the forms do. It actually takes in that data and makes sense of it, makes sure that it's not spam or a virus or something that doesn't fit with how this form validation goes. And then it actually spits out the results that we want, which is in this print form.clean data. So let's actually take a look at the difference between the two. If I hit save and continue now, I see that this one right here has more information there than we need, like the CSRF middleware token. We don't need that information. All we need is all this stuff right here, and that's the stuff that's actually coming through, which is really cool. So now that we've got this, we have a better way to kind of understand what these users' needs and preferences are. So that allows us to actually save this in the database somewhere. We're definitely getting a lot closer to doing that. So in the next one, all we have to do is make a model of this. Now, let's just recap exactly what's going on here. Is we have a question, and then we have preset answers, and those preset answers are going to be for us and our coworker's ideal answer. So somebody whom we would want to work with, how would they answer it? Or better yet, how we would want them to answer, and how important that question and answer would be to them, and then how important this question and answer is to you. So those are the things that we need to kind of measure. So now what we have to think about is how to store this data. It's going to be stored in a very similar way, but there is still one more aspect we want to add on our coworker's ideal answer, and that is in here. We'll say we're going to add one last one underneath here, and it's going to be doesn't matter, or we'll put it at -1, and we'll call this doesn't matter at all. And since it doesn't matter at all, they can select that, or we'll just say doesn't matter, or holds no importance. That probably sounds better. Holds no importance. So since this is the case, the importance level also doesn't really matter here. But if they select holds no importance, then automatically it's just going to be nothing. It's not even going to really matter as far as the score is concerned once we actually assign scores to this, and you'll see what that is. All right, so if you have any questions on how we did all this stuff, let us know. In the next one, we are actually going to store this stuff in the database. We'll finally do it based off of what we just did here. All right, so we'll see you then.